Oh boy, here I am making this video about this thing in Ontario. So, I'm going to be talking about the missing link and how it's been revived. Um, this video isn't about, the plans and whatever. This video is about every constraint with the missing link. So, I spent the last couple of days mapping this sort of thing out. Uh, Looks confusing at first, but I pretty much have it listed here, so I'm actually going to start off. In blue is CN right of way, in red is CPKC right of way, in black is the freed up right of way after the missing link, if it were to become a thing and actually be completed. Uh, in sort of orange-ish yellow is possible interchanges slash deviations of the right of way that's going to be happening for the missing link, or just interchanges. This here is sort of spur lines. I didn't finish this because I didn't think it was too necessary about halfway through. This sort of darker orange, more reddish orange is the actual missing link. And in yellow is areas that would need additional tracks. So I'm actually going to start in Milton. So here we have CN going sort of north-south through Milton and CPKC going east-west through Milton. So, if the missing link were to happen, CN wouldn't really need trackage north of here, which is a five-side road. I know some CN trains do use the spur lines, I believe CN 551. So, that would still be a thing. However, figuring out where the missing link would connect to CN would be difficult because if you see here, this is the Milton Logistics Hub. Right now, it's not on maps. It hasn't updated, but they are starting progress on it. And it is about in this area. So, deviating the line to the east to go around Milton doesn't exactly seem like the idea. So, possibly what I theorized is this. So, what would happen is uh, eastbound CN trains would go onto this line, do a sort of 180, and then be on the missing link. And of course, CPKC, which comes from obviously its original line, would continue on here. Same thing for possible locals or anything that will want to use this to go north to access the spur lines, as said before. But I'm not sure because a lot of the locals seem to come from the south. Anyway, on to Milton. I'm thinking that Milton and in general between Lisgar and Milton, I put it right here. Additional tracks between Lisgar and Milton for Go and CN slash CPKC since the missing link uses the gulp between Lisgar and Milton. So you're bound to see a lot of trains through here, so more tracks is most likely needed. I'm basically thinking that it's going to be dedicated tracks for all three, if not dedicated tracks for Go and then dedicated tracks for both CN and CPKC. But I'm not sure how that's going to work, considering CN and CPKC are literal rivals. But yeah, I just put that down there. Everything else in Milton pretty much going to stay the same. Maybe a station reconfiguration, considering it's going to have more tracks through here. And if I look over here on this bridge area, there's actually space for four tracks. So you never know. It could just be one track for Go, three tracks for CN and CPKC. Anyways, moving on to where the actual action happens. Pretty much everywhere here is pretty much fine for multiple tracks, but it gets a little fishy here. So, Lisgar Go Station might get a redesign. Could get a second platform, whatever. But I'm going to talk about the missing link and where it's actually going to go. So, a lot of maps have had it continue straight forward, which isn't possible because all the industries and buildings here would literally prevent that. So pretty much the only way is for it to deviate along the hydro corridor or to possibly deviate somewhere around here. I'm just gonna say this for now because it seems more open land, there's more open land here. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep it like this. It's going to continue along the hydro corridor around here, and then this is where things get a little bit interesting. So we have the Credit River and the 407 grade. Here, of course, lies the Credit River, as well as an uphill grade going east. I'm thinking that a huge viaduct or possibly track elevation via terrain would be needed because trains can't climb like cars do. And if you were to go to Mavis Road and look west, you'll notice that there's a considerable grade. This is due to the 407 going down to meet the Credit River, which is much lower than where it is up here, the elevation at Mavis Road. So, yeah, that's what I'm theorizing. Of course, this is just me theorizing pretty much everything because, of course, the missing link is only a plan now and it could change and has changed in the past few times it's been introduced, I guess. Anyway, this is where deviations start to come in. So I put down potential deviations. There is more than one possible path between Mavis Road and Highway 410. I could be wrong, but again, this is a possibility since it's only a plan. Here we have a bunch of different deviations. The main one I put down, which I don't think is probably going to be the main one, is here. It passes the Go Bus carpool station and then skirts in between the LRT right of way and the hydro corridor. I don't think this is going to be possible now that I think of it. I feel like it's going to go along here between the 407 and the Huron-Ontario LRT OMSF because there's more space there. Could be wrong, it could be here, or it could be in between the hydro corridor, but I see that as less likely because I don't think that's going to be very useful, especially if they're possibly doing some sort of viaduct or a bridge, because a lot of these roads will be grade separated, so I don't see how that's going to work. I could be wrong again, theories. So it could either be north of the OMSF or south of it. Then we reach Highway 410. I feel like it's pretty straightforward. Just going to go across the 410. And then it just skirts around this area. This area was very hard to map and pretty much pick out an area to put down this road, or not road, put down this line or just feature rail, because it again crosses rivers. It crosses this. This is going to be interesting. Obviously, I don't think this is going to be the exact place because it's going to be crossing a river, but also Tompkin Road, which is already a bridge over the river. There's more, of course, grade separation of Dixie Road and grade separation of Bramley Road, most likely as well. Here's another deviation. I don't think this one's going to be a thing. It probably would skirt around here, maybe. And then we reach pretty much the Halton sub of its original area. So everything west of here is new track between Lisgar and here because, of course, no track exists there. And this is their initial plan of having it go across the 407/hydro corridor right away. Anyway, we're going to go talk about this now. Now we're into yellow territory. And again, yellow is areas that would need additional tracks. Since this is CPKC and CN we're talking about, and CN's lines definitely cannot support CPKC, additional trains is what I'm saying, so more tracks is needed. There would most likely be a reconfiguration of the Brampton Intermodal Terminal lines that enter and exit basically this Y here, because more tracks and then, of course, more crossovers and all that. Goreway Drive is already being grade separated as I speak, so that's pretty much out of the way. Here is, I guess, pretty good for additional tracks if you zoom in. Well, if I zoom in. Here is pretty much fine. There's a lot of area, so there's not much of a concern here. Again, a bridge over the Clairville Reservoir area. But here's where things get a little bit enticing. Space constraint. This isn't the first space constraint that we have. There is industrial areas that, of course, will constrain it. It goes about Steeles and Martin Grove, this intersection which goes over top the Halton sub. I've always found it interesting. I've been there before. And then it goes pretty much all the way back to the Clairvale Reservoir, or pretty much the West Humber River. Yeah, I don't think there's much space for even a third track. I may be wrong, there probably is a third track here. I know there's spurs around here. But space constraints is most likely going to be a problem, as well as, I didn't mention this, but a lot of highways and bridges that are go over top might have to be redesigned. The 427 looks pretty fine. You can see the line that goes across here and here. It looks like it has enough space for more tracks. But others like Albion Road might need a redesign as well. Which, my goodness, if you're going to account for all the bridges, then that's going to take a long time. Highway 27, another same thing. The Martin Grove Steeles Avenue intersection, which goes over top, might need a redesign as well. It looks like there's possibly space here, but the tunnel is very small. It doesn't look very spacious. Then we get to, oh my goodness, this one's going to be a mouthful. So I'm going to start off with actually the Humber Bridge. Since the missing link requires more tracks, this bridge either needs to be redone or a new one would have to be built beside it, because the Humber River Bridge is only one track. And it's already a bottleneck between CN trains passing through here. So, yeah, it's going to be a little interesting. Now for the very difficult task that I think is going to happen. The Halton-MacTier interchange. Since the missing link eliminates the Canadian Pacific Galt sub from roughly, I said Hornby, but I'm going to say Lisgar GO Station to the junction in Toronto, the MacTier is left unconnected. The missing link will require a junction at the Humber River Bridge area, which would connect to the MacTier subdivision. I drew up this because this is probably a better use of land instead of building a bridge which would go across here, and it would just be a huge bridge considering the land here dips down. Like, the area here that the Halton sub goes on, it is literally so small. The elevation here is so small that I don't even think would even support more tracks unless they dump a bunch of dirt and literally make space for that. That literally ties into more tracks, but this, I feel like, makes better use of land. And of course, it connects to the MacTier subdivision, which goes up north to, say, Vaughan Intermodal Terminal and other places up north. And of course, more tracks would be needed here again. And a lot of things would have to be redone here at Macmillan Yard, which is CN's pretty much largest yard, second largest yard actually. Symington Yard's bigger, but largest yard in the sense of, train traffic. So, I'm actually going to click Snyder here, CN Snyder. CN Snyder would most likely be reorganized as a lot more trains would be passing by Macmillan rather than going in and out of Macmillan Yard. So, yeah, that's going to be a redesign. Same thing for CN Snyder West. I put CC and Snyder for the reasoning. My goodness, English. So I put something here, missing link, Brampton Intermodal Terminal to Macmillan. The section between Brampton Intermodal and Macmillan would likely be the busiest, as you would see CN trains coming in and out of Macmillan, CPKC trains coming off and on the MacTier subdivision, and CN trains going in and out of Brampton Intermodal. But there's also one thing I'd like to highlight, this area in particular. This area will most likely see heavy competition as the missing link brings Vaughan Intermodal Terminal much closer to Brampton Intermodal Terminal, increasing competition between CN and CPKC. If you hadn't figured it out, let me get a better view of this. This is Brampton Intermodal Terminal. This is Vaughan Intermodal Terminal. CPKC, CN. With the missing link, it brings these two much closer than you think and will literally enable competition. Think of it as you and a rival have set up some sort of pizza shop in Toronto, but you are both on different sides of Toronto. Say the government forces you both to literally be a block away from each other. Essentially, what you're looking at is competition. It's not going to be very great, and I feel like CN and CPKC will literally push back on this super heavily to the point where it will literally be a hectic, very, very hectic situation on top of the already hectic situation that the missing link is. Uh, where was I? I was on pretty much Macmillan. Same thing would apply with CPKC's Aging Courtyard and CN's Macmillan Yard, but I'm gonna get to that a little bit later. Okay, so now we are on the York sub. This is where things get a lot more interesting. Even though the York sub is pretty much double track until about somewhere here, there's more space constraints. Same thing as the industrial area, but now with houses. And houses are a lot harder to get rid of because, of course, resonance and pushback and, this, that, and the third. Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting site. So another thing I probably didn't put down here was a possible grade separation. I don't see it happening because how small this area is. But if there's more tracks coming through here, and Go Transit's Richmond Hill line crosses over, and you also have CN trains coming on and off the Bala sub, you're looking at a nightmare. I don't really need to explain this. It's literally a nightmare. Yeah. I don't think it would work. Okay, some more space constraints. Yeah, more space. It doesn't look like there's space constraints once you get here. Looks pretty fine to me. But the York sub, I'm not sure where it is. It was somewhere around here where it becomes single track. Oh, right here. So the York sub becomes single track here, but looks like there's space for a double track. But we'd most likely have to add a triple or quadruple track because we are getting very close to CPKC's Aging Courtyard. So I'm going to skip here. So this is where CPKC trains would be coming on and off the York sub to go to CPKC's Aging Courtyard. Now, I decided to use the Havelock sub, the CPKC Havelock sub, since that's closer to the York sub and since that's where they'd be getting on and off, rather than the Belleville, which is over here where they intersect. So it would pretty much just be this one swing, because if they're going east, they just take the Belleville. If they're going west, they just take the York subdivision, or I'm not sure if the name's going to stay. But I'm just going to say York for now. They pretty much, all they have to do is just double track it up to about the yard, and you're fine. Maybe not. CPKC doesn't really double track a lot of sections aside from the Galt sub on the Go Transit Milton line. But if they want to double track it, it's up to them. If they don't want to, it's up to them. But what will need to happen is, of course, this sort of 180-degree turn-ish here for CPKC trains to come on the York sub, and of course the rest is history. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. I'm not sure how this project is going to go through. I don't think it's going to go through because Metrolinx dropped it a couple years ago, only for Doug Ford to re-announce it again, and I feel like Go Trans is going to drop it again. Of course, the freed up lines here, the CPKC Galt sub would just turn into the Milton line. Well, it would just turn into the Metrolinx Galt sub because they're bound to keep the name. Same thing for here, probably turn into the Metrolinx Halton sub. I didn't list the entire Halton sub, and pretty much I didn't list the entire Galt sub because Go Transit's not going to use the Halton sub between Georgetown and Milton. They're only using this section between Bramalea and Georgetown, aka known as Hall West and Silver. After that, they go west on the Metrolinx Guelph sub, and then east of that, they go on the Metrolinx Weston sub. So there's really no use for the Halton sub between Georgetown and Milton, unless some CN train goes up here to deliver whatever, which I don't see happening. Same thing for the Galt sub. I didn't put down the North Toronto or Belleville sub up to about here because the Midtown line doesn't exist as of now. I'm just only counting the lines that do, that are in this topic. But yeah, essentially, Go Transit doesn't need to do much about this line except add double platforms on other sides like Dixie, Cooksville, maybe Lisgar, some other stations. But yeah, they don't need to add additional tracks if this were to go through. But I don't see this going through. So they might be adding an additional track here for Go Trains. Same thing for the Kitchener line. Again, the downtown Brampton situation with the bottleneck. They'll probably add a third track. Most likely, there are plans that have been drawn up right now with the city of Brampton and I guess Go Transit, as well as a flyover somewhere around here. But yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. There are some other things I think I listed on here. I'm not sure. Yeah, I already said that. Competition between Vaughan Intermodal and Brampton Intermodal. But yeah, you're pretty much looking at what could possibly be the case of the missing link and all the problems. But on top of that, this will take a long time. A very much long time. So, yeah, this is sort of just a yap session about what I think is going to happen with the missing link. I mean, if this were to go through and everything was okay, CPK, CNC, and actually get along, which do you think that's going to happen? Probably not. Then, more service on the Kitchener line, more service on the Milton line. Good, but I don't see that happening. So, yeah, I guess this is the gist of it. If you think there's if you think there's contradictions to this, if you think you have a rebuttal to this, then yeah, I want to hear it because I still think it's not going to happen. The plans are most likely going to change. So yeah, that's pretty much what I think. I guess that's a wrap on this video. See ya.